For years, Buckingham Palace stayed silent. Not a whisper, not a comment, not even a hint of what it truly thought about Meghan, Harry, or their children. Headlines exploded, interviews aired, documentaries dropped. But inside the palace walls, not a word was spoken. The silence was heavy, calculated, and meaningful. It wasn't ignorance or oversight. It was precision. Sources close to the palace reveal that after years of quiet observation, the Crown finally decided to make a move. This wasn't a public statement, a social media post, or a scandalous leak. It was official, deliberate, and chillingly permanent. Documents now sit inside the palace archives that allegedly remove Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor and Lilibet Diana Mountbatten Windsor from the official royal narrative. No titles, no claims to the throne, no ceremonial roles, just gone. To understand why the palace acted now, we have to go back, far beyond Meghan and Harry leaving royal life, beyond 2018, even beyond their engagement announcements. Over 100 years ago, King George V foresaw potential threats to the monarchy. Europe was unstable. War raged, and confusion around royal succession could spell disaster for the crown. So, in 1917, he issued the Letters Patent, laying down strict rules for royal inheritance and recognition. 3 rules in particular would later determine the fate of Archie and Lilibet. First, a child must come from a legitimate royal bloodline. Second, their birth must be formally recognized and recorded by the crown. Third, the child must be connected to the Church of England through a formal christening. These rules weren't emotional, they were absolute. For over 100 years, every royal heir followed them meticulously. But when Harry and Meghan's children arrived, the palace noticed discrepancies. Archie's birth certificate, originally listing Meghan as Rachel Meghan Markle, was later altered to reflect her title, Duchess of Sussex. The reasons remain disputed. Some say it was Meghan's request, others say the palace insisted. Regardless, the paperwork no longer matched traditional protocol, creating a crack in royal documentation that the crown could not ignore. Fast forward to Lilibet's birth in California, 2021. Unlike previous royal births, there was no ceremonial announcement, no palace confirmation, not even acknowledgement from London before public disclosure. For a royal child, this was unprecedented. The baptism, celebrated in California, was never officially recognized by the Church of England, leaving Lilibet in a limbo where she legally and spiritually didn't fully exist within the royal framework. This section of the story sets the stage, a palace that moves slowly but decisively, centuries of rules dictating royal legitimacy, and 2 children caught in the delicate intersection of history, law, and protocol. The silence of Buckingham Palace spoke louder than any statement ever could. After Lilibet's birth, Buckingham Palace's silence wasn't just noticeable, it was deafening. In royal tradition, births aren't merely family celebrations, they are historical milestones carefully documented in the archives and celebrated with ceremonial acknowledgement. Every detail, from the attendance of royal doctors to the signing of official records, cements a child's place in the lineage of the crown. But for Archie and Lilibet, none of this happened. The palace reportedly viewed these events not as personal slights, but as breaches of established protocol. From the moment Archie's paperwork appeared inconsistent and Lilibet's birth and baptism were conducted far from England, the crown's concern grew. Every skipped procedure, every unrecorded ceremony created a widening gap between the children and the institution. The palace didn't act emotionally, it acted with systematic precision. Every royal protocol is designed to maintain clarity, order, and lineage. When those foundations are questioned, the crown steps in. Inside Buckingham Palace, insiders described tense meetings behind closed doors. Advisors reviewed documents, cross-checked birth certificates, and considered the implications of foreign births and unrecognized baptisms. They weren't considering headlines or public opinion, they were protecting the integrity of the monarchy itself.
This is where centuries of tradition collided with modern reality. A prince living abroad, a duchess from Hollywood, and two children outside the traditional framework of royal recognition. As the palace deliberated, Prince Harry reportedly became increasingly anxious. Sources say he made multiple late-night phone calls back to London, pleading for his children's positions to be preserved. "Please don't shut the door on them," he allegedly told palace officials. "They're still my children. This isn't about me, it's about their birthright." Unlike the public persona of calm confidence, Harry was, according to insiders, distraught, caught between love for his children and respect for the monarchy. The palace response, however, remained unyielding. One aide allegedly responded coldly, "This is not about emotion. This is about order, lineage, and the future of the crown." For Harry, raised to respect the institution above all, hearing this truth aimed at his own children was a crushing revelation. Appeals and explanations fell on deaf ears as the palace proceeded with calculated, quiet action. Behind the scenes, this was not a dramatic showdown or a confrontation filled with shouting. Instead, it was a series of measured steps, documents prepared, records updated, and finally, the removal of titles. Archie became simply Archie. Lilibet became simply Lilibet. No prince, no princess, no ceremonial roles, no automatic claim to security, and no official place in the royal lineage. Overnight, centuries of royal tradition reshaped their identities. The silence that followed was louder than any public statement. The crown had acted, not in anger, but in accordance with centuries-old rules. In royal culture, silence is decisive. It signals closure, authority, and permanence. For Harry and Meghan, the message was clear. The monarchy moves slowly, deliberately, and without emotional consideration. With the removal of titles and the lack of official recognition, Archie and Lilibet entered a unique and delicate position, caught between the world of royalty and ordinary life. In the eyes of Buckingham Palace, their births had occurred outside the legal and ceremonial frameworks that define royal status. For centuries, every heir's life was meticulously documented, ensuring a clear line of succession and preserving centuries of royal tradition. Yet, for these two children, the rules of inheritance, ceremony, and documentation had created an unprecedented gray area. Archie, born in 2019, initially seemed to have the standard royal recognition, announcements, fanfare, and global media attention. However, insiders revealed that subtle inconsistencies in documentation raised alarms. For instance, Meghan Markle's legal name, Rachel Meghan Markle, was initially listed on his birth certificate, but later replaced with her royal title, Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex. Whether at the palace's insistence or the couple's request, the alteration sowed confusion. Birth certificates, the cornerstone of a child's legal identity, had now been manipulated in a way that compromised the monarchy's ability to confirm lineage. When Lilibet Diana was born in 2021, the palace reportedly saw an even larger issue. Born thousands of miles from the UK, her birth was announced via a California press release rather than the traditional royal bulletin. Crucially, no royal doctors signed off, no palace acknowledgement was recorded, and there was no ceremonial confirmation. The palace interprets such omissions not merely as technical errors, but as breaks in continuity, undermining both the historical and spiritual documentation required to integrate a child fully into the royal lineage. The complications extended to religious recognition as well. Baptism is more than a family ritual. It is a formal link between a child and the Church of England, the spiritual foundation that ties royal heirs to the crown. While Lilibet was baptized in California, sources claim the ceremony was never formally recognized by the Church of England. Without this official religious acknowledgement, her connection to centuries of royal tradition remained incomplete. In essence, Lilibet's birth existed in the public sphere, but not within the institutional memory of the monarchy. This limbo created challenges beyond ceremonial recognition. Titles, succession rights, and privileges are not arbitrary. They are legally and historically codified. By not following protocol, the children effectively lost access to these rights. In legal terms, Archie and Lilibet were no longer considered part of the royal lineage, which also affects privileges like security detail, official royal engagements, and the potential inheritance of ceremonial roles. Their position is now defined by a combination of parental protection and distance from the institutional monarchy. From the palace's perspective, these actions were about preserving order and tradition, rather than punishing individuals. The Crown's decisions are deliberate, informed by legal precedent, historical texts, and centuries of established practice. Silence, withdrawal, and careful documentation, not public confrontation, are the methods the monarchy employs when confronting challenges to its long-standing rules. For Harry and Meghan, the situation represents a clash between modern parenting in California and centuries-old institutional expectations in London.
For Harry and Meghan, the palace's quiet yet decisive actions created far more than procedural complications. They struck at the heart of parenthood and identity. The removal of titles and the absence of ceremonial recognition left the couple grappling with a sense of loss and exclusion. While they had voluntarily stepped back from royal duties, the realization that their children were being quietly erased from official records came as a shock. Sources close to the couple describe late-night conversations and urgent calls to palace aides, where Harry pleaded for acknowledgement of Archie and Lilibet, emphasizing that they remained his children above all else. The tension between family loyalty and institutional hierarchy placed Harry and Meghan in uncharted territory. On one hand, they were parents seeking normalcy, protection, and love for their children. On the other, they faced centuries-old structures designed to preserve tradition at all costs. Every denied title, every unrecognized baptism, and every omission from royal documentation was perceived as a challenge to their parental authority, not merely ceremonial oversight. The palace's detachment, described by insiders as coldly precise, magnified the emotional stakes. Harry, in particular, is reported to have experienced moments of panic, fearing that the children's rightful place in the Windsor story was slipping away. In response, Harry and Meghan embraced a distinctly modern approach to parenting, one grounded in transparency, security, and emotional well-being. Far from the palace's formal corridors and centuries-old rules, they prioritized a childhood marked by warmth and freedom in California. Playgrounds, family outings, and private celebrations replaced ceremonial gardens and royal events. Lilibet and Archie were shielded from the pressures of court life, instead growing up with their parents' guidance, love, and active involvement. Meghan, drawing on her Hollywood experience, reportedly implemented strict media boundaries to prevent the children's lives from being exposed to public scrutiny. Yet, emotional challenges persisted. The couple constantly negotiated the balance between protecting their children and maintaining public narratives. Every media appearance, every interview, and every social post was carefully calculated to assert their family identity while respecting the palace's insistence on protocol. Insiders claim that Harry and Meghan often faced quiet frustrations when confronted with legal or bureaucratic barriers tied to the monarchy, highlighting the stark contrast between parental priorities and royal obligations. Despite the obstacles, the couple's strategy demonstrates resilience. By focusing on private milestones, birthdays, school achievements, and personal celebrations, they are creating a new royal narrative, one defined not by titles or succession, but by familial love and personal autonomy. They emphasize emotional growth over ceremonial validation, ensuring that Archie and Lilibet experience security, stability, and identity formation, free from the pressures of institutional expectations. As Archie and Lilibet grow up outside the immediate influence of Buckingham Palace, the long-term implications of their altered royal status become increasingly significant. The palace's removal of their titles and the lack of formal acknowledgement place them in a unique historical and cultural limbo. They are children of a prince, yet officially absent from the line of succession and traditional royal records. This dichotomy creates both challenges and opportunities for their personal identities, blending elements of privilege with the reality of legal and ceremonial exclusion.
From a psychological perspective, growing up outside the official royal framework allows the children to experience a more grounded, normal upbringing, insulated from the intense scrutiny that accompanies palace life. Free from constant public observation, they can develop a sense of self that is less defined by titles and protocol, focusing instead on family bonds, personal interests, and cultural exposure. Meghan and Harry's decision to prioritize privacy and emotional well-being over formal recognition is likely to foster resilience, independence, and confidence in their children, shaping them into young adults capable of navigating complex social and professional environments. However, this unique status also presents potential identity challenges. The absence of official titles and formal recognition may lead to questions about heritage, belonging, and personal history, particularly as they encounter external narratives about their family and the monarchy. Public curiosity, media speculation, and ongoing royal commentary could influence how they perceive their place in the world, prompting both Archie and Lilibet to reconcile private familial reality with public perception. Parents play a crucial role here, guiding their children to understand both the privileges of their lineage and the complexities of the institution that has officially excluded them. Academically and professionally, being outside formal royal obligations provides unprecedented freedom. They are not bound by ceremonial expectations, charitable duties mandated by the crown, or the intense media scrutiny traditionally associated with heirs. Instead, they have the opportunity to forge their own paths, explore global cultures, and develop careers or passions without institutional limitations. This independence, while liberating, requires careful parental guidance to navigate potential social pressures, including the intersection of wealth, fame, and family legacy. Legally and historically, the decisions made by Buckingham Palace set a precedent. Archie and Lilibet's names absent from royal records illustrate the absolute authority of the monarchy over lineage documentation. For future historians, genealogists, or royal scholars, this will represent a significant deviation from centuries of protocol, highlighting the tension between personal choices and institutional rigidity. Over time, their unique status may influence how royal succession laws, ceremonial recognition, and family integration are viewed, potentially shaping reforms or debates regarding the flexibility of tradition. Ultimately, the narrative surrounding Archie and Lilibet underscores the complex intersection of monarchy, parenthood, and identity. While titles and ceremonial recognition were stripped away, the children remain central to the Sussex family's personal legacy, cherished and protected by parents committed to love, autonomy, and emotional stability. Their upbringing outside palace confines demonstrates that identity and influence are not solely determined by titles or protocol, but by familial bonds, values, and resilience. The story of Archie and Lilibet will continue to evolve, balancing historical exclusion with modern empowerment, leaving an indelible mark on the broader narrative of the royal family and the evolving understanding of what it means to belong.